Hello, and welcome back to Growing Tall Poppies Thrive After Trauma. I'm Dr. Nat Green, and today's episode is one that honestly surprised me a little. It isn't what I was planning to do this week. However, there really was so much emotional depth, and there were so many metaphors to what we experienced today that I thought it might be worth pivoting the episode and changing it up for a little bit today. And as I'm recording this, currently in San Francisco, after several weeks, as you know, traveling through Canada and the Rockies with my husband as we celebrated our 30 years together. So, left Alaska yesterday after the most magical few weeks away, traveling through Canada and the Rockies. And then we cruised the inside passage of Alaska through to Anchorage. And honestly, the scenery was nothing short of stunningly spectacular. Yesterday, we started the return journey back to Australia, stopping for a couple of nights in San Francisco on our way home. Today, we ventured out to Alcatraz because, a visit to San Francisco just wouldn't be complete without heading out to the island or the rock, would it? And honestly, I wasn't expecting a visit to Alcatraz to impact me the way it did. This trip has given me something that I think many high functioning women rarely allow themselves enough of, and that is space. Space to just slow down, to reflect, space to just notice, and space to just breathe. And after spending the day at Alcatraz today, looking at this place that was built for isolation, survival, hypervigilance, and containment, I realized something, quite profound. I found myself thinking deeply about survival, about protection, about identity, and about isolation, and about the invisible prisons that so many high functioning women are still living inside internally, even long after the original trauma, stress, or adversity has ended. And even though externally they look successful, capable, high functioning, often over functioning, let's be honest, strong, productive, here's the thing. Sometimes the trauma ends, but the nervous system never gets told that this danger has passed. And eventually, the level of protection comes the prison. So as I was walking through Alcatraz today, it was confronting in a way that I didn't expect. The tiny cells, the isolation, the hypervigilance, that emotional containment, constant surveillance, the loss of freedom, all of that was sort of expected. Standing there, I had this moment where I thought, so many women that listen to this still living like this internally. Not literally, of course, but emotionally, mentally, and definitely nervous system wise. Because so many high functioning women that I work with appear completely fine on the outside. They're capable, successful, functioning, productive, responsible, often the strong one for everyone else. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But underneath, they're exhausted, still bracing, still scanning, still overthinking, still carrying everything, and unable to fully relax, definitely still emotionally guarded, still operating as though the world is so unsafe. And often they don't even realize they're doing it anymore because this level of survival has become normal. And this is what's so important to understand. Most survival patterns don't feel dramatic, especially in high functioning women. They tend to look like over functioning, good old perfectionism, hyper independence. You know, that I'll do everything, it's okay, I'll do it all myself. Emotional containment, holding back, needing control, stay constantly busy, struggling to receive support, difficulty slowing down, and that classic feeling guilty whenever you rest, always anticipating problems, trying to stay one step ahead, and constantly holding it all together. Pretty sure the majority of you can relate to a number of those patterns. And because society rewards many of these patterns, and women often don't realise they're still living from that survival mode. They just think, this is who I am. But often it's not who you are, it's who you had to become in order to feel safe. And that's different. One of the things that I've become increasingly aware of in my work is how deeply trauma, chronic stress, and adversity really can shape our identity. Not just emotions, not just behaviors, but our actual identity, who we believe we need to be in order to survive. And over time, many women unconsciously build entire identities around this form of protection that they learned a long time ago. This strong one, the high achiever, the caretaker, looking after everyone else, the capable one, the independent one who doesn't need anyone, and the one who keeps going no matter what. These identities often begin as brilliant adaptive strategies. They helped us survive, they helped us cope, and they helped us to function. But eventually, this adaptation becomes limiting. And if you've been following my work and my podcast for a while, you'll know that this is what I call identity fractures. Protective versions of ourselves that once kept us safe, but now quietly limit our ability to fully live, to fully trust, fully receive, to fully rest, connect, and to expand. And the tricky part here is that these patterns can feel incredibly familiar. And as we know, we tend to hold on to what feels familiar and safe, which means that freedom itself, and often what we tell ourselves we really want, can start to feel unsafe. That's huge because many high functioning women aren't consciously afraid of success. They're afraid of what happens if they stop just surviving. What happens if they slow down? What happens if they stop over functioning? What happens if you allow some support? What happens if you stop proving? What happens if you're no longer the strong one? So for many women, this form of survival became your identity. And that is why mindset work alone really won't fully shift things. Because this isn't cognitive, it's nervous system based. The body learned that staying alert and hypervigilant keeps me safe. Being needed keeps me safe. Being productive keeps me safe. Being self reliant absolutely keeps me safe. So even when life changes along the way, the nervous system becomes the guard and keeps guarding the present. And one of the things that struck me at Alcatraz was this constant sense of surveillance. The guards, the monitoring, the watchtowers, the vigilance that was necessary for mere survival. And honestly, many nervous systems operate exactly the same way after trauma or adversity. How often do you notice yourself always scanning, always anticipating, always preparing, always bracing, even in moments that are objectively safe? And I think that this is one reason that so many women struggle to actually feel present in their lives. Because internally, the system is still monitoring for danger. And danger, of course, doesn't mean physical danger. Not always. Sometimes danger means being judged, disappointing people, a failure to meet your own or others' expectations, visibility, vulnerability, conflict, slowing down, being able to receive, being seen, or succeeding beyond what feels familiar. And this is why women can desperately want peace while simultaneously feeling uncomfortable when life becomes quiet. Because when survival mode has been your normal, stillness can feel deeply unfamiliar. In fact, even threatening. And this is something I've reflected on so much during this trip. Because over the last few weeks, I've felt my own nervous system soften in ways I probably didn't fully realize it needed, and in ways I don't think I've ever let myself experience before. Being surrounded by awe-inspiring landscapes and nature, forests, mountains, water, flowing streams, space and open skies filled with stars, that connection and those slower moments, they were magic. And that creates room to actually hear yourself again. And I think many women haven't had enough space to even notice how tightly they've been holding themselves for years. Let's face it, Alcatraz was designed to isolate, and many high functioning women also emotionally isolate. Do you ever find yourself saying, "Oh, I'll handle it myself. I don't want to burden anyone. Oh, I should be okay by now. No one really understands." Any of these things? Because you function so well, people often don't see them. Now, I just want to clarify, high functioning doesn't mean free. This is such an important distinction. Just because someone is functioning or over functioning doesn't mean they're free. And I think high functioning women, especially, become masters at surviving beautifully. Look calm, capable, successful, so together. Internally, their nervous system It's a very different story. It's exhausted from constant invisible effort. And because they're functioning, other people often don't realise the depth of what they're carrying. Sometimes even you don't recognise it until some of these things start to creep in. Burnout, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion, the relationship strain, the health issues, the chronic feeling of overwhelm, perhaps the numbness, connection, or that persistent feeling of, why do I still feel stuck even after all the work I've done? And honestly, I think many women quietly grieve the fact that they survived, but never fully learned how to feel safe living afterwards. And it's pretty deep, I know, because survival and living are not the same thing. Survival says stay alert, keep pushing, don't let anyone else down, don't stop, don't fall apart, don't trust too much, all those things. Whereas living says you're safe enough to soften, you're safe enough to receive, you're safe enough to rest, you're safe enough to be fully you, be yourself. And for many women, this just feels completely foreign. And I think that this is why my work is evolving the way it is. I'm really excited about what's ahead because more and more I'm seeing that what women need isn't more pressure to perform. They actually need safety to expand, not just based on insight, not just an awareness at a cognitive level. Not going to cut it. You've already got that. What you need is true integration, embodiment, nervous system capacity, and identity level healing. Helping women identify the invisible patterns keeping them emotionally imprisoned, and then creating the safety needed to move beyond them. That is what is becoming more and more evident is needed. Not through force, not through hustle, and not through fixing yourselves, but through understanding. You adapted. Your nervous system learned survival. That's pretty cool. Your identity formed around protection. And now that we know that, your body needs help learning safety again. And that's the work. And honestly, I think this holiday has taught me so very much and deepened my own integration and my commitment to this work. And I am really excited to share it with you so you too can connect to the aura around you, be present, and feel your nervous system's reshaping. And you can work towards thriving and living the life that you dream of. This next chapter of my own work is going to focus even more deeply on that. Helping high functioning women stop racing against life, helping them move beyond the invisible prisons survival is created, helping them reconnect to themselves again, not just cognitively, but fully, in ways that are embodied, integrated, and sustainable. So, as I stood there today, looking out from Alcatraz across the water toward the freedom of the city and beyond, couldn't help but think how many women are standing at the edge of a new life while still emotionally trapped inside old survival patterns. And maybe healing isn't about becoming someone completely new, Maybe it's about finally feeling safe enough to leave the prison that survival built around you. Maybe it's about recognizing that danger has passed. Maybe it's about learning how to live instead of to simply survive beautifully. And maybe the next chapter of your life isn't about pushing harder. Maybe it's about finally allowing yourself to exhale. So if you do nothing else this week, I would love for you to take some time out for yourself to experience some awe, even for as little as 10 minutes this week. I'm going to challenge you to connect with nature, look up at the sky, look up at the stars, and just be. And I want you to just notice, just see what happens as you allow yourself to do this. And finally exhale. Thank you so much for being here with me again today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd absolutely love for you to share it, tag me on social media, or send it to someone who needs this reminder today. As always, keep shining brightly and standing tall as the tall poppy you are. That's it from me. Have a great week, and I'll catch up with you next week when I'm back home, back in Australia. Bye for now.